Great Westerners. Yep. Last year, most of you know, a feature film about her life won a Wrangler in this next category, Outstanding Television Feature Film. Speaking of television, what?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Sure.
No, I mean, speaking of television, I just wanted to take a moment. Can I ask you a question, Rex?
Yeah, let's go.
On the Miami Vice show that you're on,
Hold on a second. Miami Vice was 35 years ago. That was in the 70s with Don Johnson.
All right.
I'm on CSI Miami. We were the #1 watched show in the world for 5 years, and we've just finished our 10th season.
Well,
thank you.
Well, congratulations, Rex. That's fantastic. Now, the reason I bring it up is because, you know, you've been on that show for 10 years, and I'm pretty much, would you say I'm your best friend?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you say that I'm a pretty good hand at the acting trade?
Yes, you are. As a matter of fact, my father, James Paul Lynn, who's a friend of this museum, always said that Robert was his favorite actor, for sure.
Well,
So, you are.
Since you mentioned your father, I'd like to say happy birthday to James Paul Lynn.
Thank you, bud. Happy birthday, James Paul.
God rest your soul. But I still got a bone to pick with you.
What is it?
Here's the situation. 10 years, I didn't have one measly guest spot on that show. You never asked me, how many times do you think I auditioned for that show?
I don't remember.
0, Rex. And point being is that didn't have anything to do with you not being able to ride a horse on Appaloosa. I just want you to know.
Golly, man. Tonight, the category for Outstanding Television Feature Film sponsored by NBC Oklahoma. Top honors go to Love's Christmas Journey, directed by Dave S. Cass Sr. and produced by Lincoln Loggeson. Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
The movie tells the story of recently widowed Ellie King. While still mourning the loss of her husband and daughter, Ellie visits her brother and his children for Christmas. When her brother travels out of town, Ellie agrees to watch his children, but the season's festivities are threatened when her brother goes missing.
Inspired by Janet Oakes' award-winning Love Comes Softly book series, this 4-hour movie event is an inspiring tale of loss, love, family, and hope. Through a series of crises, and when all seems lost, Ellie not only gets a perfect holiday miracle, but also the chance at a new life when she finds herself falling in love again.
Hi. Starring in the film are Ernie Borgnine, Sean Astin, Dylan Bruce, Natalie Hall, Charles Shaughnessy, and Jo Beth Williams. Here to accept the award for Outstanding Television Feature Film are producer Lincoln Loggeson and Ernie Borgnine.
Come on, guys.
Lincoln, say something, please.
Thanks for coming out here with us. Stay here, stay close. Thank you all very, very much. On behalf of our cast and crew, we'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to every one of you here. We don't get that many opportunities to make Westerns, so when the opportunities come up, we want to make sure we do a good job and we honor the genre. As a producer, probably the smartest thing I did on this movie was hire Ernie Borgnine and tell my guys to point the camera at him, and I got out of the way.
We don't have much time. I want to tell you something. As long as Link is the line producer, I'm working, man. I'll tell you, he's the greatest guy in the world. You come to work and it's open arms, really. It's something to go it makes you want to go to work. It's just wonderful, and thank you, Blake, very much. You're a dream.
Thank you all very much. I hope you have a great night tonight. And whenever a Western comes out, whether it's on television or in the movie theater, please support it so we can make more. Thank you all.
Okay, now it's time to recognize the Outstanding Theatrical Motion Picture. This award is sponsored by Wyatt and Lisa McCrae.
Yeah, baby. Yellow Rock was directed by Nick Vallelonga, produced by Enlightenment Films Incorporated, Vallelonga Productions, and written by Lenore Andriel and Steve Doucette. The film focuses on the conflict that quickly arose between Native Americans and white settlers during the California Gold Rush in the 19th century.
Centered around a rescue mission seeking a family members and lost boy, the film shows how greed for gold can quickly derail even the best laid and best intentioned plans. Through their greed and betrayal, they bring the unsuspecting tribe to the brink of extinction. Ultimately, this quest will lead men to fight the land, wild animals, and each other until divine justice is handed out.
The winner of the Red Nations Film Festival's top prizes for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Yellow Rock features standout performances, stunning imagery, and compelling story with a poignant message that stands to resonate. Yellow Rock has also been nominated as the American Indian Film Festival.
And here to accept the award for Outstanding Theatrical Motion Picture,
Please welcome producer and writer Lenore Andriel. And thank you. Producer Steve Doucette, director and producer Nick Vallelonga, and male leads Michael Bean, Michael Spears, and Eddie Spears. Come on up.
Stand next to me, Nick. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for making my birthday weekend pretty exceptional. You throw one big happy birthday party. Thank you very much. On behalf of my colleagues, my co-stars, my wonderful partner, and all the wonderful people that we do have involved with this movie that couldn't be here tonight, we want to thank the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, all the judges and the board members, the wonderful Benhams for having us last night, and the fabulous staff here at the museum for giving us a new home and a new family. Thank you. We love you folks. You guys have been awesome. The composition of this movie by Randy Miller is pretty outstanding, as is the editing and so many of the people that were involved in this. Daniel Valuze with the Valuze Motion Picture Ranch was actually owned by Gene Autry, for those of you who don't know that. And we shot on the 800 acres of this ranch, and we felt like we stepped back into 1880. When I first got together with my partner Steve Doucette to write this story, something occurred to us. We thought, well, we can make a very entertaining film and an entertaining Western. And then we started to soul search, and we went, you know what? Maybe we can do that, and we can actually touch people's heart with a message that hopefully will resonate, starting with the authenticity of some of the real stories that happened in the West. Let's not make a movie just about cowboys and Indians. Let's make a movie about people and what we can all do to one another, both in the positive and the deadly. So tonight, I want to thank all of you for all of these awards. These are really beautiful, gorgeous Wrangler Award. And I want to dedicate this also to Bridget Burdine, who was our casting director, who cast the Native Americans in this film. She was my best friend. She is no longer with us. But without her guiding spirit and without the wonderful tribal members who actually gave us the heart of this film, who no longer exist, we dedicate the statue to you. And I would like to bring up our director as well. Thank you very much. Nick Vallelonga, come say a word.
I know we have to end this quickly. First of all, Michael Bean wanted to be here. He's working and couldn't come. And James Russo was going to be on a flight this morning to come here. He's actually working on Quentin Tarantino's Django that Rex is working on. He couldn't leave the set. He said to tell you, Rex, by the way, that since you were here tonight, Quentin gave him the rest of your dialogue, so you don't have to worry about it. When Lenore asked me to direct this film, I said, what? Western and guns and horses and cowboys and Indians? And, me? You want me to direct? I thought, well, okay, I'm Italian from New Jersey. The guns part I could do, okay. But her script was magnificent, and quickly, it was an honor to do a Western, because a Western is truly an art form that belongs to us only. It's an American art form that's about values and family, and I felt, because there aren't many Westerns made anymore, we wanted to do something that was a throwback, that resonated with the type of values that were in the old movies. And I watched a lot of movies from the 40s and the 50s, but as a kid I loved Westerns. I grew up on John Wayne, and to be here on a night with Fess Parker is honored. I watched Daniel Boone, and Bruce Boxleitner I was an usher in a movie theater. I watched Tron 1,000 times. But the Western is special, and I think the script was special, and we went out to make a tiny little movie, and here we are. Ernest Borgnine is here. I mean, this is just an amazing night for all of us, and I think if everyone could speak, we would all say how honored we are to be here, and thank you so much for your hospitality. They got me to wear cowboy boots with a tux, so quite an influence. Thank you very, very, very much.
Yeah, is Quentin there? Hey, Quentin, Rex Lynn, how are you? I don't even have his number, but I just thought I'd do that. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. Are there any Oklahoma State Cowboys out there? Are there any OU Sooners out there? All right, I love the spirit of college sports. But hey, baby. As a dedicated University of Texas Longhorn fan, I'm really pumped about getting to present this next award presented by Love's Travel, Stops, and Country Stores. For one thing, it gives me an excuse to say hook 'em horns and tell you that the Texas cheerleader who started the great hook 'em horns tradition back in 1955 says one of the greatest influences on his life was a UT professor and historian named Walter Prescott Webb. Professor Webb was a visionary who reinterpreted not just the history of the West, but the history of America. He was able to look into the future and issue prescient warnings about such things as the long-term risk of large-scale irrigation in the arid Southwest. He was a man who spent his life probing the lessons of the past and applying those lessons fearlessly to his own time and to the future of his beloved Texas. His lifelong dedication to America's Western heritage has earned Walter Prescott Webb, Ph.D., a place in the National Cowboy Museum's Hall of Great Westerners.
There's a lot to be said for college rivalries. There's perhaps no greater rivalry than that between the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas. Likewise, there's quite a rivalry between the University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State University. But one thing we can all agree on is that Walter Prescott Webb was a great American Western historian.
We would not understand the West, we would not understand American history the way we do today without his work.
He was the quintessential Texas historian. He was born in East Texas, raised on the edge of West Texas, educated at the University of Texas in Austin.
The son of a Texas farmer, Webb found the imaginary world of literature much more appealing than his own and planned on a career as a writer when he arrived at the University of Texas not long after the turn of the century.
He didn't find creating original plots very easy. So he kind of gravitated, one of the reasons he supposedly gravitated to history was the plot was already there. The basic outline was already there. And then he could impose his own framework on it. So he found it a better way to be an author than to be a novelist.
Webb penned a thesis that would become an enduring explanation of Western history. He posed the question, do we shape our environment or does our environment shape us? In his thesis-turned book called The Great Plains, he argued for a combination of both.
That this treeless, level, semi-arid environment shapes this region, and by virtue of that, shapes the nation.
What Webb said in the Great Plains was this: the settlement of the United States would have stalled out in the arid West were it not for three critical technological innovations: the six-shooter, barbed wire, and the windmill.
The Great Plains would earn Dr. Webb his Ph.D. and mark him, in Dr. Dew's words, as the quintessential Western historian. But his next work, built on the same themes with an even broader perspective, would brand him as the quintessential American historian.
What Webb did was take the lens of history, pull it back to a wide angle, to see the frontier in the context of Christopher Columbus, the age of exploration, and to show that the frontier was not so much a place, but a process that culminated in the emergence of capitalism and ultimately democracy.
Because even though he's talking about the West, I think what he says about the interplay between man and the environment and how the two affect one another could be applied globally.
The Great Plains and the Great Frontier are still required reading for Western history grad students. But Dr. Webb wrote dozens of other books and articles that would expose his interpretation of history to the non-academic world, including a popular page-turner about his state's beloved Texas Rangers. Dr. Webb's profile, coupled with his unconventional ideas, drew attention from critics, colleagues, and politicians alike. He began to offer advice regarding water policy within the Lone Star State. His uncanny predictions would foreshadow supply issues the nation wouldn't actually experience for decades.
He did, I think in very realistic and actually accurate terms, point out that you just cannot rob water from one part of the nation and bring it to another, and you just can't expect what is essentially an arid and semi-arid region to become something it's not. There are vast limitations to this environment, and we need to learn to live within it rather than to change it.
Dr. Webb made his mark by searching the past to explain the present and even predict the future. His early life on the boundless Texas prairie gave him the broadest possible context from which to challenge our understanding of the West.
No matter what you think about what he said, he forced you to rethink what you already were thinking about that topic. And that is really a profound impact in many ways.
So, hook 'em horns, Dr. Webb. Here's to a lifetime of work that transcends the Red River boundary and secures your seat in the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum's Hall of Great Westerners. Walter Prescott Webb passed away back in 1963, but he's still remembered fondly on the UT campus. And I think, hopefully, here to accept his award is one of his University of Texas colleagues, a distinguished historian and author in his own right, Dr. H.W. Brands.
I don't have much that I can meaningfully add to what has been just so insightfully said about the importance of Walter Webb for historians. I would like to add, however, that I teach at the University of Texas, and his spirit still hangs over us at UT. His portrait is in the meeting room of the history department, and his watchful eye is gazing on us as we gather and go about our business. I write on the history of the United States and on the history of the American West, and I will say that everybody who writes on the history of the West and on the United States more broadly owes a great debt to Walter Webb. On his behalf, on the behalf of my colleagues at the University of Texas, I'd like to say thank you to you all, and once again, hook 'em.
I just want to say real quickly, congratulations. Also, real quick, for you guys to know the history, Lynn Anderson and I have started dating again, and we're thinking about children.
And now for our final induction into the Hall of Great Westerners, sponsored by Express Employment. Please welcome Burns Hargis, President of Oklahoma State University.
It is such an honor to be here at the Western Heritage Awards, and I, as an Oklahoma State Cowboy, I feel right at home, and I had no idea, Chuck, that you would actually use orange napkins, but I want to really thank you for that. That was very thoughtful, very thoughtful. I'm taking this one. I hope you don't mind. There are many ways to earn induction into the museum's Hall of Great Westerners. One of them is to change the world, and this year's inductee did exactly that. Diagnosed with autism as a toddler, Temple Grandin grew into a young woman who was quite simply a cowgirl with a vision of how animals see the world, and she was able to translate that vision for the rest of us. And the result was a revolution in the cattle industry. Dr. Temple Grandin holds a doctorate in animal science, is a New York Times best-selling author, the subject of an Emmy and Wrangler Award-winning HBO film, a beloved college professor, and now an inductee into the Hall of Great Westerners.
Temple Grandin was born in Boston in 1947 into a post-war world with little understanding of autism. But a supportive family, good teachers, a love for animals, and an obsession that led to a calling would plunge her down a path that reinvented the cattle handling industry and forced the world to reconsider the boundaries of autism. During a summer visit to her aunt's ranch in Arizona, young Temple became obsessed by the squeeze chute used to hold cows in place for inoculation. She noticed the cattle relaxed once they were in the chute and wondered if a similar gadget could help calm her own, sometimes overwhelming anxieties. She designed a human squeeze machine, still used today by persons with autism. But that was just the beginning. The process made her realize that as a result of her autism, she shared some visual experiences and panic responses with herd animals. That vision led her to pioneer a new approach to cattle handling that included solid-walled, curved chutes with non-slip flooring to prevent overstimulation and agitation within the herd.
The handling systems that she's designed, I've been in multiple facilities myself and with Dr. Grandin, watched them working. The calmness that the animals exhibit makes all of her life's work worthwhile.
It's estimated that half the cattle processed in North America pass through facilities designed by the towering figure now known as Dr. Temple Grandin.
She introduced an entirely different way of doing things and talking about things and measuring things in terms of animal well-being and behavior.
You can't name anybody else in the world that does what she does. The combination of thought and practicality and dedication to the animals and relationship with the industry and so forth.
Dr. Grandin is an internationally acclaimed speaker, author, and Colorado State University professor whose simple philosophy that nature is cruel but we don't have to be has become an industry mantra. Her professional accomplishments transcend the cattle business and offer a model of success for those in the autism community.
When my son was diagnosed in 1990, the very first book that I read was Temple's book. She took what her experiences were, she gave them to us. She wrote about them, she talked about them, she shared her life, and that became our beacon. She lives a very important life, and it's impacted me and thousands of people like me.
When HBO turned the story of her early life into a movie called Temple Grandin, millions were captivated by the tale.
Got any idea what your major might be? Science, probably psychology. Oh, you don't have to decide just yet, do you? It's bigger than boarding school. That's great. Lots of choices.
Danny's looking at you. So he can see all around without moving his head.
So how do you know where he's looking?
His ears. He points his ears where he's looking. See? He's looking at you, and he's looking at those cowboys.
Something about this movie, something about her story really reaches to people. And I think it's, you know, they look at it and they see, this is not the story of someone unlike me, this is a story of someone like me that I can relate to.
Trust me, we know how different she is.
Different, not less.
Different, but not less.
I've made television movies, I've made big feature films, you know, some of them costing over $100 million, and I've made very tiny movies. This is the one I'm proudest of, this movie. There is nothing like this. And if I did nothing else in my career, I would have done something really, really worth doing.
We know what we see when we look at animals. Temple taught us what they see when they look back. That's her gift.
The legacy of this extraordinary woman lives on in the industry she's transforming, the students she teaches, and the words she writes. But the most profound effect of Temple Grandin's life resonates in the hearts of those who know and love her.
She's warm and she's funny and she's genuine. What else do you want out of a friend? She's remarkable.
Dr. Temple Grandin, pioneer, innovator, humanitarian, teacher, and now an inductee into the Hall of Great Westerners.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and great pleasure to induct Temple Grandin into the Hall of Great Westerners.
I would have never believed back in the 70s when I was building the dip vats that I'd ever be here. I just want to mention that the thing with the metal plate where they put it in there and it made the cattle drown, that actually did happen. But it didn't happen at Red River. It was at another feed yard. We'll leave their name out of it. There was the Red River one, was the second one that I did, and it worked absolutely perfectly. Why did people put that metal plate in there? Because they don't see. They don't see if the cattle will just walk in there if you make things right. Now, I have a similar kind of ramp design on my center track restrainer for beef plants. Half of all the cattle in this country go through that system. It has the same kind of non-slip ramp. In 2011, 2 plants took the cleats off the ramp. In other words, they made the same mistake that was made 35 years ago because they don't see it. I guess that's going to give me some job, some job security. But when I was a kid, I definitely had a lot of problems. Now, the thing about autism is it's a big spectrum. At one end, you got Steve Jobs. I was reading about Steve Jobs, a weird loner that brought snakes to school to liven up the classroom. He was a dirty hippie. Einstein didn't talk until age 3. And I've been looking at a lot of the beautiful art in this museum. And I think there's probably a little bit on the spectrum there. And then you get at the other end of the spectrum, you get a much more serious handicap. It's a very big spectrum. But we got to work on educating these kids that are kind of different. I'm getting really concerned about where some of them are going today. And I've been doing a lot of talks at universities to students. And today's students are totally separated from agriculture and practical things. They've taken the hands-on classes out of the schools. I think that's really bad. And one question I always get asked is, do the cattle know they're going to get slaughtered? And I explain about how I answered that question when I was young. And they behave the same way at the Swift plant. It was named Abbott in the movie because they couldn't use the Swift name because it was still existing. And then the feed yard, they behaved the same at a feed yard as they did at the Swift plant. So they obviously didn't know they were going to get slaughtered. I'm also getting more and more questions about, ethics of eating meat. I've been out on universities where Food Inc. is the most popular book. It's assigned reading for the entire campus. And we got to explain what good things cattle can do. Grazing animals can actually help the land. We've got a lot of range land where grazing animals is what we should be doing on that land. We need to be getting that word out. I was very interested to see that an Employment Professionals was my sponsor, and I have to say I don't know what these employment professionals do, but I hope they help people get jobs, because we need to help the kids that are kind of quirky and different. We got to help them to do great, really creative things, and I'm just so honored, and thank you so much.
We're on the home stretch. Ernie, let me be the first to congratulate you on your Wrangler Award win tonight.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind of you, really.
I managed to leave out a few key facts about Ernie earlier. For example, I neglected to mention your Golden Globe nomination for the movie Grandpa for Christmas, or your recurring voiceover role as Mermaid Man on SpongeBob SquarePants. Evil! And you have been honored by a restaurant called Tortilla Flats in New York City for reasons nobody can really explain.
That's right. Well, they got one up there for Elvis Presley and myself. On one side is Elvis and myself on the other side. And they sent a letter one time and they said, we'd like to dedicate this to you. I said, wonderful, that's very nice, thank you very much. And one day I popped in and I had my letters up there, pictures up there, and every year they try to find an Ernest Borgnine lookalike. So far, 4 women have found it.
Welcome to the 17th annual Ernest Borgnine Night!
The special Ernest Borgnine Night last week is an annual event, but here they exalt the man all year long.
This is a photograph of Ernie sitting right where I'm sitting.
Oh, wow. There's the hallowed Borgnine booth. There are Ernie relics and Ernie artifacts.
This is the original coat worn by Ernie in the sitcom The Single Guy.
He looks very much like my father's cousin Jimmy.
Actor-director John Turturro and his son Amadeo are Ernie aficionados.
My father was an Ernest Borgnine fan. I'm an Ernest Borgnine fan. My son's an Ernest Borgnine fan. We love you, Ernie.
Now there's a whole new generation of fans that know him as the voice of Mermaid Man in SpongeBob SquarePants.
I'm back to my old self again. Say hello to Ernest Borgnine in person.
Ernie called Tortilla Flats during last week's big fiesta, thrilling the assembled Borgninians.
I hope to get over there really soon and have a drink with all of you.
On Borgnine Night, it just doesn't get any better than that.
If my water breaks tonight, I'm going to name it Ernie.
Ernie! 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 Ernie!
Ernie! We're just keeping up with the times, making sure that we keep in all the way from old adults to young children. God bless us all.
Fantastic. On behalf of the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, Ernie and I want to thank you for being here tonight. Congratulations to all of our recipients, and thanks to everyone who helped make this night possible. And that brings a close to the 51st anniversary of the Western Heritage Awards. God bless. Vaya con Dios.